Kind-hearted, empathetic, and at times highly naive, the INFJ personality type often falls into the trap of caring for the wrong people. They take the misery of others as a challenge to their nurturing essence and can't help but to dive headfirst into aiding others back to health. Yet, what happens when it all becomes too much and the INFJ refuses to care? Welcome back, psychos. Before we get into it, we'd love it if you liked and subscribed to our channel, as well as to click the post notification bell so you never miss a video. Alright, let's get right into it, starting with Number 1. They come to understand their own breaking point. Headstrong and emotionally regulated, the INFJ tends to think they can take on pretty much any difficulty while keeping their sanity. Instead of reacting, INFJs tend to go numb and stay numb up until the point they have no choice but to break. Without realizing, INFJs will slowly disconnect from friends, family, hobbies, and eventually their inner selves, without taking a second to think that maybe they're not handling difficult circumstances as well as they think they're handling them. Well, the same goes when the INFJ is challenged with a connection with someone they must stop caring about. Despite their ability to hold out for impressive lengths of time and pressure, luckily, the INFJ does have a breaking point, surprising themselves in the process. When the INFJ finally stops caring about someone, they end up facing that breaking point head-on. Number 2. They stop expending their energy no matter how hard they try. Despite the INFJ's notorious reputation of introversion in combination with their short social battery life, INFJs are innate pleasers. They thrive on helping others where they can, and although exhausting, love to use their energy for the sake of lifting others up. With firm boundaries, INFJs can even end up reaching that sweet spot of finding worthy components who not only happily and efficiently utilize the INFJ's giving nature, but also have the capacity to return the favor in an equal give and take. However, it's fair to say that for most INFJs, this idealistic scenario is far from the reality of things. In fact, INFJs usually end up using a lot of their thoughtful support and reliability on those who are completely undeserving of it. They tend to think that when their energy is being taken advantage of, it's somehow an invitation to give more in hopes that someone will become more appreciative. Luckily, although this may go on for months, years, and even decades at a time, INFJs eventually reach a subconscious break that allows them to put a halt on it all. Sometimes it takes a rough case of burnout, illness, or mental health spiral for the INFJ to realize the toll caring about someone who doesn't care about them takes on their overall well-being. Number 3. They stop justifying actions. When it comes to difficult relationships, there's nothing the empathic INFJ does better than giving second chances, giving people the benefit of the doubt, and ultimately justifying actions that are meant to serve as warnings. This personality type, who chooses to see the best in people, ends up making every excuse in the book for poor behavior. Despite being able to see through lies, BS, and inflated egos, the INFJ chooses to look the other way by convincing themselves that there must be something deeper going on. INFJs take these unideal personality traits and habits of those they are drawn to as a challenge to dig deeper, and ultimately help people out of their self-made misery. However, once the INFJ had given someone all the patience, care, understanding, and justifying they can with no avail, something switches within them. It's a sudden subconscious process that allows them to finally see things for what they are, eventually leading them to take ill behavior as the forewarning it's meant to serve as. Which brings us to our next point. Number 4. They stop idealizing someone's potential. So, why is it that the INFJ can't help but to justify the unfortunate and often unchanged habits of others? Well, serving as both a blessing and a curse for this empathetic type, INFJs can't help but to fall in love with the potential of those they feel connected to. With the underlying belief that everything happens for a reason, INFJs are often convinced that the people who make it past their introversion and emotional barriers, somehow winning over their heart, are meant to be in their lives for one reason or another. Unfortunately, rarely are these destined connections placed in the INFJ's life for their own greater good, but rather to exercise their deeply held hero complex. With the ability to see past someone's unhealed trauma, mental illness, and personality flaws, INFJs automatically see the true essence of each human that lies beneath all the hurt. Yet, this Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde inner battle must be held at a certain ratio and intensity in order for the INFJ to stick around. In other words, once the INFJ realizes they can't withhold the responsibility of managing another's dark side, they'll stop idealizing their potential, ultimately allowing them to let go without the overwhelming empathetic guilt of leaving someone out in the cold. Number 5. They withdraw and contemplate. Burdened by the emotions of others, INFJs are known to be extra sensitive when it comes to disconnecting from those they've built a connection with. While some personality types are able to easily get over breakups or the ending of friendships, INFJs take a considerable amount of time and effort to make these changes in their lives. In fact, sometimes the rumination and contemplation process that follows leaving someone behind can overtake the INFJ's mental capacity entirely. With such distraction, INFJs can end up spiraling down a dark hole of hamster-wheeling thoughts, memories, and questions. They can end up convincing themselves that they've made the wrong choice one minute, only to believe the complete opposite the next. And while this dark and trying time can sometimes end up leading them back to where they started with an individual, eventually with no changes made, the INFJ will stop caring completely. Luckily, once this lengthy process is over and the INFJ gets a feel for what it's like to not be dampened by someone's toxic presence, there's nowhere to go but up. Which brings us to our next point. Number 6. They get a surge of liberating motivation. Sure, for the INFJ, stopping caring isn't easy. In fact, sometimes it's the most difficult decision they ever make. However, after the deep, dark thoughts of regret and despair subside, the INFJ who has freed themselves of the restraints of their own overtaking caring nature ends up feeling liberated beyond comprehension. In fact, there's nothing more rewarding for this type than overcoming their self-placed restriction of setting boundaries around their mental equilibrium. Whether it be leaving an unfulfilling job, a toxic living environment, or in this case, someone who they were forced to let go of, any INFJ who battled their own inner contemplation and came out on top knows how freeing and powerful it feels to walk away. Sometimes, the simple act of deciding to stop caring about someone who drags the INFJ's energy down can serve as a pivotal turning point in the INFJ's life, leading them to the direction their intuition has been begging them to follow. Plus, sometimes all it takes is a newfound sense of self-empowerment to encourage the INFJ to follow dreams they never dared to follow before. And lastly, number 7, they carry those lessons forward to future connections. With futuristic thinking, the INFJ personality type is known for their continuous what's next thinking patterns. While this serves as another layer to their motivation, future thoughts of finding new connections after overcoming a toxic one can make them feel extremely weary. When an INFJ is pushed to stop caring, something happens within them that strengthens the barriers they set around their vulnerability. Despite wishing the other person the best, INFJs can end up seeing romantic and platonic relationships in a different light, one that makes them reluctant to take on the flaws and baggage of another in fear that they won't be able to handle it in the long run. While this aspect of the lesson can be difficult to overcome, there's a positive light that comes in the form of learning the appropriate times to set boundaries through following intuition. If the INFJs were to look back at the struggles that ensued their past connections, they'll see where their inner knowing was pushing them to look beyond. This is where the INFJ grows. Well, psychos, that's it for today. So, let us know in the comments below if you recognize these behaviors in yourself as an INFJ who stopped caring about someone they once considered a close person. Also, make sure to leave us a like, share with your friends, and subscribe to our channel so that you never miss a video.